Greetings, Bat family, and welcome back to Holy BatCast, brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. You can visit our website at holybatcast.com and find us all over social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast and you will find us. If you're a fan of the show and you want to support us, you can do that on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/holybatcast. And as always, a big thank you to our patrons. You guys are awesome. You're generous, you're kind, and we appreciate you. So thank you to our patrons. You guys rock. We're part of the Real Fans Podcast Network, so you can check out those shows at rf4rm.com. And as always, I'm your host, Andy DiGenova. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Letterboxd. It's just my name, Andy DiGenova. Now, this episode, we are going to finally get around to reviewing Justice League, the Flashpoint Paradox. That's right. We said we were going to do it before The Flash, and we are getting awfully close. So it is time. We're going to look back at the animated version of Flashpoint, which, as it turns out, is 10 years old in just a couple months anyway. So it's the 10th anniversary, and it's perfect little appetizer for The Flash. Joining me for that is my good pal, Jamie Drewley. Hey, Jamie.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm curious about something. We've been doing this show for a little over 9 years now. Is that right?
Oh, man, I think so. We started in 2014. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the only question I have to ask is, how the hell have we never done this before?
We just missed it. Like, this was new. This came in, it came out July of 2013. And so I feel like when we started the show, what was it? Not even a year later? I have to look at I don't remember what month we started the show, but it was like too new to go back to, but too old to like jump to. I don't know. So it just felt like, yeah, it was weird. It was just about a year old when we started the show, and so we missed it.
That just seems crazy to me. I mean, this is obviously a very well-known and pretty popular film in the DC animated universe. I'm just saying, it seems strange to me that it's taken this long to circle back around to it, but the timing is fortuitous. 10th anniversary, pre-Flash release, if that movie ever gets released, all that stuff.
Well, I mean, it worked out the way it was supposed to for that very reason, right? Is like, if we had done it before, then we couldn't do it in the lead up for the Flash. So it was fine.
If I didn't know any better, I would accuse you of tampering with the timeline just to make this work.
I did. I went back, didn't save anyone's lives, but just messed with podcasts. So I'm looking now. We started this show February of 2014. I was just curious.
So that's about 7 months after the movie released. Interesting.
Yeah. Oh my God. So come February, 10th anniversary. What's the gift for 10th anniversary? I think you owe me a diamond or something. I don't remember.
Okay.
What's the, I don't know what maybe it's a car. If anyone
that I can help you with. The diamond, not so much.
I actually don't really want the diamond, so it's fine.
Okay.
Maybe the 10th anniversary is the action figure anniversary.
For us, probably, yeah.
Because I could always use another Batman action figure.
Who couldn't? I mean, there's Batman action figures are like the Jell-O of collectibles. There's always room for more.
Come on, there's always room for Batman action figures. Anyway, we are going to talk about Flashpoint. We are going to review the next episode of The Batman because we're just moving right along there. But before we do any of that stuff, I got to give a shout out to our pals over at Manscaped. So guys, Father's Day is coming up in just a few weeks. It's right around the corner, and you haven't gotten your dad anything yet. But don't worry, that's where the sponsors of today's show, Manscaped, comes in. You and I both know that he needs some serious grooming in his life, so grab your dad the Performance Package 4.0, and he'll thank you for helping him tame his beast. It's a win-win situation for both mom and dad. So go to manscaped.com, use the promo code BATSCAPED for 20% off and free shipping. So just remember, Manscaped's the only men's brand dedicated to below-the-waist grooming, and they've perfected their game with the Lawnmower 4.0. So imagine surprising your dad with a sleek, well-designed grooming kit that says, your balls will thank you. That'll make for fun conversation at your Father's Day dinner. Maybe your dad's getting older and he's got the nose hairs that are sticking out of his nose or his ears. You can get him the trimmer. Get him that. Get him the lawnmower. It's great. Sorry, the weed whackers for the nose and ears, the lawnmowers for everything else. But anyway, there's lots of great stuff. Maybe you don't even want to go there with your dad. That's fine too. Get him the cologne, the deodorant, the body wash. Anyway, they have everything you need for grooming. Go to manscaped.com and use that promo code BATSCAPED for 20% off. And a big thank you to Manscaped as always for sponsoring the show. We appreciate that.
I just put in a big order a couple of weeks ago myself, so now
did
I'm
you?
stocked on everything.
Good. It was time. You could have just asked your family for it.
I could have, but I don't like awkward conversations. So.
That's true. That's true. Kids, daddy's balls have gotten a little out of hand.
Yeah, that's probably not one anybody wants to have.
Anyway, yeah, Manscaped, they've got lots of great stuff. I just stocked up on deodorant. I'll be honest. I was like, I just need a few more of those because I've become a huge fan. And I know I could go to Target and grab Speed Stick, but I really like the Manscaped stuff, so I did it. Anyway, they have lots of good stuff. Maybe you want it for you. Maybe you want it for a father in your life. Maybe you want it for just someone you call daddy. Whatever. Go to Manscaped, use that promo code BATSCAPED, get that discount, get that 20% off, and you were supporting Holy BatCast in the process. We would love that. So, also before we move on, my voice is not like where it normally is. I don't know. I've had a little bit of a cough, so I apologize for that too. But the show must go on.
It sounds like you've been screaming at a young child very frequently.
You know, I haven't. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how much of it's morning and how much of it's just. I mean, like I said, I've had a cough for a few days and I feel fine. It's just one of those annoying things.
Yeah.
So forgive me, guys, but we will make it work. So it is time. Let's go back almost 10 years. Look at what has become a landmark story in DC Comics. Started in the comics. 2 years later, became an animated movie, and now some version of it is going to hit the big screen in just a couple weeks. So we're talking about Justice League, the Flashpoint Paradox. Where is my Flashpoint info? This was released on July 30th of 2013. So come July, 10 years old. It's directed by Jay Oliva and written by Jim Krieg, based on, again, the now infamous comic book story arc from Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns and Andy Kubert. Yes. So we have quite
that's an all-star team right there, if I may just be so bold.
No argument here. And we have quite a cast on this one. I forgot how big this cast was. So we have Justin Chambers of Grey's Anatomy fame as the Flash, C. Thomas Howell as the Reverse Flash / Professor Zoom. They're one and the same. Kevin McKidd, also from Grey's Anatomy, as Thomas Wayne Batman. Michael B. Jordan as Cyborg. Kevin Conroy as Bruce Wayne Batman. Dana Delaney returns as Lois Lane. Carrie Elways as Aquaman. Nathan Fillion as Green Lantern. So yeah, a heck of a cast on this one. It came out July 2013. And we're going to talk spoilers, guys. It's 10 years old. I feel like at that point, the statute of limitations has expired. So, but we'll start with just general overall thoughts. And I'm honestly kind of surprised this one isn't being released as like a special edition steelbook or something in time for the Flash. But we'll see. So overall thoughts, Jamie?
Well, I guess I can just jump right to this. This was either my number 1 or number 2 movie of 2013 on my year-end final list.
I remember that.
I remember there being some stink about, can you use direct-to-video things? I'm like, well, I did it last year with Dark Knight Returns, so why wouldn't I do it now? So yeah.
I do remember that. I feel like it started the trend of the direct to videos making those lists. But maybe you're right. Maybe Dark Knight Returns did it first.
Yeah, it did, because that was released in 2012, and it definitely was my number one movie of the year then. So actually, the second one may have been 2013, so that might have been my number one, and this might have been my number two. So I might have had one and two. I'd have to look it
Wow.
up. I'd have to figure it out. But anyway, yeah, if you couldn't tell from that endorsement, I really like this movie a lot. I don't think it's quite perfect. I think there's a thing or two that I might change about it, but I like stories. I know not everybody does, where they tinker with things a little bit. I don't necessarily need it changed forever in that perspective, but an Elseworlds tale or something done just a little differently. I'm always interested to see what perspective somebody can bring to it. Not that I'm like tired of the same old Batman, Superman, Justice League, DC stuff. It's an expansive universe, and I think there's room to tell these types of stories. And in my opinion, I think this is a very well done one. I think the book was really good. I don't think I've ever read everything involving the book, but I've read like a compilation of a great number of the stories that were involving Batman and Deathstroke and things like that. And I really enjoyed that, and I really enjoy this movie. It's another one of those situations where they had to condense a lot, but I think they did a very admirable job in adapting it and getting the main points across. And other than a couple of exceptions, I'll just get it out of the way now. I'm not wild about the animation / character designs in this one.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they would have been a little stronger, a little less exaggerated. But I mean, that's like my chief thing with it. Past that, I'm going to be mostly positive about the film, and yeah, I enjoy it. In fact, I watched it yesterday, or not yesterday, Friday. But I was also working while I was doing it, so I wasn't giving it my full attention. So I kind of went back this morning when I got up and rewatched like the second half of it, probably the last 45 or so minutes of it. And it turns out, Andy, this surprises me. I don't think I've seen this in probably 7 or 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So revisiting it was almost like a fresh pair of eyes on it, because
Yeah.
even though I remembered some really key points to it, there was a lot of the smaller detail in the story that I had kind of forgotten about because it had been so long. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, I forgot about that. So yeah, it was a really good time going back on this ride, feeling almost like watching it for the first time again. And I think it's just as good now as it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's funny. We had a very similar experience because, yes, this is one like you, I really like. Anytime when I think of the best DC animated movies, this is always one that's right there in the mix. Did we ever rank the DC animated movies? I know we did Batman animated movies, but did we ever rank the DC animated movies?
I can't recall. Given how
can't
many
either.
episodes we're in right now, it's hard for me to remember
I
what
know,
we've done in Evan at this point.
We're in striking distance of 400, and I never remember what we've done. That's usually Brendan's job. He could tell us. Anyway, my point is this is one that like always does come to mind when I think of some of the best, because I do think it's really good. I have really good memories of it. I remember really liking it. But you're right. When I watched it last night, there was so much that I had forgotten. Like you said, there were certainly big moments and big salient points that I remember like they were yesterday. But then there was a lot that I had forgotten because I don't think I had seen this since 2013. I don't know how much I've rewatched it, even though I liked it so much. And I think we've said this before about these animated movies is even the ones we love, I don't go back to as much as I would like because there's a new one coming next month. And then it's just because it's just this nonstop stream, I don't go back to them as much as I wish I would. But I really do like this one. I think it's great. I have 2 nitpicks about it, but you already covered the first one. And that is some of the designs of the characters are a little off to me. The big one for me is Aquaman. Aquaman, especially alternate reality Aquaman, he looks like the Hulk, but not green. Like if you colored this Aquaman green, it would be the Hulk. And I'm like, God, he's just too big and ridiculous. And his neck is as thick as his head. It's actually, I think his neck is bigger than his head. It's too much. And I think
he looks like The Rock with hair.
Yeah, right. Oh God. So now The Rock is going to be our new Aquaman. The hierarchy of power in the DC oceans is about to change.
Yeah, you beat me to it. I was going to say here we go with the hierarchy changing again.
Yep. But yeah, like he's the one that bugs me the most. The rest of them I think are fine. They don't, I don't hate them, but yes, like they're certainly not my favorites either. And I even watched it with Catherine last night, and when it was over, she goes, "That was really good." I'm like, "Yeah," and she goes, "Except they all look kind of weird." I'm like, "Yeah." So completely agree with that. But I will get to my other complaint when we get into spoilers. But aside from those two things, I think this is a great one. I really love it. And like you said, it's kind of a bummer we haven't reviewed it up until now, but that actually worked out. The stars aligned, and this is a perfect time to revisit it because even watching it last night, thoroughly enjoying it, remembering parts that I'd forgotten about, it got me more hyped for The Flash. Because I was like, oh man, like we know that there are certainly certain beats that they will, be doing in the Flash movie, but then there are other parts where I'm like, oh, I wonder if they'll pull this. I wonder if there'll be a version of this. I want, and it just really got my imagination going wild for what could be in the Flash. And so that was exciting. This is it's a great thing to watch as we're getting ready for the Flash. And so I thoroughly enjoyed it last night. I still think it's a great one. There's a lot to love about this one. And to your point, the comic book arc, it wasn't just a mini series, it was also one of those universe spanning events. So they had like the main Flashpoint book, but then it schlepped over into all the other books. And I think they even did some new books that were just for Flashpoint. So it was like a big universe crossover thing. And so there was a lot of stuff in Flashpoint. And this movie, I think, does a very admirable job of staying with the main story, but giving nods to all those other little things along the way. So, like, if you were a fan of the comic crossover, there are little nods to things that you go, "Oh, that's right, that's right. That was something in the Flashpoint book." But I never find it distracting because you're still focused very much on Barry and then eventually Barry and Batman's journey. So, yeah, it's a really good one, and it has a lot it has to achieve in an hour and 20 minutes, and I think it does it very deftly. So, yeah, Flashpoint Paradox. It's a good one. I didn't check if it was on HBO Max or not.
It is,
because I own it.
Because that's where I watched it.
Well, that's good. It should actually be on the front page of HBO Max for the next few weeks because again, I feel like people should be in the mood to watch this.
Seems likely.
I will also say it moves. Like when I was watching it, I was into it, I was enjoying it, and then all of a sudden we were at like the big final battle, and I was like, "Oh my god, are we here already?" Because there's so much going on, there's so much that it covers. Like it just boom, 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 boom. There's like no fat in this thing, and before we knew it, we were in the climax, and I was like, "Oh my god, I thought I'd only been watching this a half an hour." So I will also say that is like there's certain ones of these that we've talked about. Well, we're like, it overstays its welcome a little bit or whatever. But not this one. Not this one. I was like, oh my god, it's almost over already.
Excuse me. I want to give a quick shout out so I don't forget to do it later. Jay Oliva, if you want to get this cat involved in more projects in this revamped DC universe that we have coming in the very near future, I'm all for it because this dude loves the characters and the universe, and I'm a fan of his work. I mean, he puts together some really great stuff with these animated films, and apparently he's done storyboards and stuff for some of the live action movies, if I recall correctly. But I love his heart for this stuff, and I would like to see him continue to be regularly involved in it in some form or another.
Agreed. No, he's so talented. You're right. He loves the DC universe. He worked closely with Zack Snyder. I would love it if he continued to be part of the DC universe because, yeah, he's great at it. And when I started this and there was a lot that I had forgotten, and I was like, oh, it's directed by Jay Oliva. No wonder it's so good. That makes sense.
He's got skills.
And Jim Krieg is no slouch himself. That's another name that I know pretty well, but he's done a lot of these, and he's been, he wrote Gotham by Gaslight, the animated version. Oh, he just produced the Justice League X Ruby, which I still haven't watched. So he's still producing all these animated movies too. But anyway, yep, the Flashpoint Paradox. It's hella good. It's also crazy to me that Flashpoint, the comic arc, was so influential immediately that they did an animated version 2 years later.
That is buck wild.
Yeah. Like it was one of those instant classics, right? It came out and like it was like, "Oh, no, this is a huge moment in the Flash's life." And yeah, they got another adaptation immediately. And even to essentially get a version on the big screen in live action 10 years later is a heck of an accomplishment.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. We've still got pretty major stories that are more or less universally beloved from, 20, 30, 40 years ago that still haven't gotten any of these treatments. And this one's gotten the double in 10 years.
Yeah.
2 years for the animated. That's madness. That's absolute madness.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
In the best way. I'm not saying that as a negative.
Oh no, of course. Again, it just more speaks to how big of a deal Flashpoint was, that it cemented itself as a landmark DC story and started getting other adaptations immediately.
So I guess I'll ask you, because you probably are aware, I have read probably less than half of the New 52 at this point. I've read quite a bit of some things. I've read nothing of others, and then in between and other places. Was Flashpoint what triggered the New 52 in comics? Or was it just coincidentally around the same time that the New 52 started?
Oh my God, that is a great question.
I feel like I assumed that that's what triggered the New 52, but I also feel like people said, no, that's not exactly correct. So anybody out there who knows, hit up the mailbox, give us the skinny on that, if you would.
That is a great question. Yeah, I didn't think it was. Oh, wait. It says right here in Wikipedia. In its end, the series radically changes the status quo for the DC Universe, leading to the 2011 relaunch of the New 52.
No, I guess that answers that question.
I mean, according to Wikipedia, exactly. According to Wikipedia, take that as you will. But, and then it also is worth noting before anybody writes, because they're writing right now, I know it, is that there was also a version of Flashpoint done on the Flash TV show.
Yes, there was.
So there's been 3 adaptations in other media, in animation, in TV, and now in film. So, and it made me want to revisit the TV version because I don't remember a lot about it, if I'm being honest. But
I remember them saying the words Flashpoint a lot.
Yeah.
But the details are thin.
They're fuzzy.
Keep in mind, I've only ever seen, I don't know, probably the first 5 seasons of the show, maybe 6. And I only saw each episode once. So yeah, trying to remember that far back for me is going to be next to impossible.
Yeah. And I also have to say, like, as I was, like looking at the voice cast, I was like, oh, this makes sense. A lot of this casting. I had completely forgotten that Michael B. Jordan was in this. And
what was he, like 8 when he did this? Holy cow.
I mean, they got him early, right? They got him young, and now it's like he's one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. And so when I watched this, I was like, holy crap, they got Michael B. Jordan. That's amazing. So everyone else, you go, it kind of makes sense, right? Like it's all people who've done stuff like this before, or like respected actors who, do smaller stuff now, like C. Thomas Howell, but like Michael B. Jordan, I was like, oh crap, they managed to grab him right before he blew up. And so it's so cool that he is Cyborg in this.
C. Thomas Howell. Every time I hear his name, all I can think of is Soul Man, which is a movie that's
oh my god,
basically been wiped off of the face of the earth.
Oh my god, no kidding.
I think its heart was in the right place, but I'm not sure people could stand that movie in 2023.
Oh my god, you're right. Also, it's worth noting, I didn't realize this, that Superman is voiced by Sam Daly, who is Tim Daly's son. Because Tim Daly did Superman on Superman the Animated Series.
Of course.
So I was like, oh, that's cool. That's a fun little thing. Anyway, speaking of things I had forgotten about, I completely forgot about this prologue where the Flash has to take down the rogues at the Flash Museum. I forgot all about it, and I love it. Too.
I forgot completely about it.
Yeah, because you're right. Like you immediately think of the Flashpoint stuff, not this really great prologue. And that was so fun. And I love the way they incorporated the Rogues into this. It's a Flash story, but as we keep saying for the live action movie, it's a Flash story that's a DC Universe movie. And I love that for a prologue, they're like, well, let's have the Flash fight the Rogues before we get into the Flashpoint stuff. And it's great. It's such a fun action scene. I love seeing all of them there. And I love that Zoom / Reverse Flash. I always forget that it's both. I prefer the Reverse Flash moniker personally, but maybe that's just me.
It sounds more menacing. Zoom could be the Flash's sidekick or partner or just another speedster in general. It doesn't have that menacing sound to it to me.
Yeah.
Reverse Flash at least indicates, hey, bad guy.
Right. And that's C. Thomas Howell. He is Professor Zoom / Reverse Flash. But yeah, he's sort of the ringleader for all the Rogues. But it's such a great, cool opening. And then the fact that the Flash finds himself in a tough spot and then the whole Justice League shows up, I was like, oh my God, that's cool. And then I went, oh, well, it is called Justice League, the Flashpoint Paradox. So they kind of had to have the Justice League show up because it's interesting because it's a Flash movie, but it is a Justice League movie. But then for most of it, it's an alternate reality Justice League movie. So even the Justice League for most of the movie is not the versions that we know and love.
Dare I be so bold as to say, wouldn't it be interesting if the beginning of the alleged Flash movie was along those same lines and that they're trying to take down the Rogues?
I mean, I was thinking it. I think we all were thinking it, but I was afraid to speak it and jinx it because I'm trying to not get my hopes up that it would be quite that. But as we've said, we don't know what that big opening action scene. We don't know who they're fighting against. We don't know who the Flash and Batman are fighting against, and whoever else might be there. So it would be awesome if they managed to get the Rogues in for that big opening. But again, I'm not holding my breath for it because, it might be too much to ask. But it certainly crossed my mind while watching this of like, again, it's such a great opening to this movie that I'm like, oh man, that would be a great way to do the new one. Oh,
I'd watch that.
Do you know who else is in this? Ron Perlman. I forgot to mention that.
Yes.
Ron Perlman is Deathstroke.
How great would he have been as a live action Deathstroke like 15 years ago?
In his prime?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those where, again, like I forgot how many cameos are in this. And it is because, again, it's nods to the other spin-off books. So, like, they mentioned Citizen Cold, because I remember in the Flashpoint timeline, Captain Cold is Citizen Cold, and he is a superhero. And you get a little mention, you get to see him in this, but that's it. It's just kind of a quick thing of like, oh, he's a hero in this universe. But I remember that was like a spin-off book of Flashpoint when the comics were out. And the same thing with like the nod to Deathstroke and him working with Lex Luthor and, which totally reminded me of the post-credit scene of Justice League, the live action movie, both versions.
Thank you for breaking my heart with that.
Yeah, it did. It was one of those like sad things where it's like, oh yeah, you never got to see that followed up on. But
wasn't Deathstroke a pirate in the Flashpoint comics?
Oh my gosh, maybe. It's been so long that I didn't read all the spinoffs. I read the main comic. But that's very possible. And so anyway, there's this big opening again, the Flash Museum. I love that the Flash Museum exists. We see Barry at his mom's grave. So it's interesting. Of course, the whole thing hinges on Nora Allen, the death of Barry's mother, and wanting to correct that. But there is no mention of Barry's father in this version, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I don't guess that ever dawned on me until you just said it.
Was it like one element too many? Like where they were like, they focused on the death of the mother and not what happened to the father. But they kind of imply that she's a single mom in this version. Because there's like the prologue where he's a little kid and they're like, they have a flat tire or whatever. And there's no dad. There's no mention of the dad. When he gets home, it seems like she was getting ready for the birthday party, but there was no mention of the dad. So yeah, it's like Henry Allen doesn't exist here.
Curious.
Interesting. I do appreciate like using that old saying of what is it? Don't stress about what you can't change. Have the courage to change what you can and have the wisdom to know the difference.
The
Something like that.
Serenity Prayer.
Yes, that's what it's called. Thank you. Like I know it, like I feel like it's used in like AA, or at least it is in movies.
Mm-hmm.
I've personally never been to AA, but I believe it's like a big AA thing.
It is.
So I appreciate using that as like the theme of Flashpoint, because that's exactly what it is, right? Is him not knowing the difference between what he can and should change, and all the consequences that arise because of that. And I actually was like, again, it was another element of the story that I forgot about. And I was like, oh, that's actually kind of a perfect encapsulation of what we're about to see. And when they introduced it at the very beginning, I was like, oh, okay, that's clever. I get that.
I mean, I get that, and it's really cool and all, but frankly, I think it would have been better if Flash just ran around through the whole movie going, "Serenity now!"
Well, that's fine too.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Everything comes back to Seinfeld with me. I can't help it.
Fair enough. But yeah, so there's again the little kid prologue, then there's the big cool action prologue. I loved watching all the different Justice League members and how they defuse these bombs. I thought that was really fun. Of like Superman's solution was literally just to put his hands over it and wait for it to explode.
And then telling the guy the waiting is the worst part or something like that. Yep. That was so good.
And Aquaman using like microscopic organisms
Microbes,
to deactivate it, and Batman doing the old school just deactivation. And I appreciate like everyone had a different way of doing it, which I thought was fun too. I was surprised to see Captain Atom show up, and I was like, that feels like a random inclusion. And then when I was like, oh, it's because he plays a part in the Flashpoint timeline, they had to introduce him at the beginning, because otherwise he's not well known enough, to the greater audience. That's like, oh, we still have to introduce him. But it was just funny because it's like, oh, it's Justice League. It's everyone you expect, and Captain Atom. I feel like poor Captain Atom has fallen by the wayside in recent years. I haven't seen him.
He's one of those characters that I feel like, at least in the animated movie perspective, like he's shown up a couple times as a pretty big player and then just goes away as quick as he came. He's like almost like a plot device of some sorts. He's a kind of a cool character. I've always thought he looked kind of neat. I've never read much about him, so I'm not like the world's foremost authority or anything, but I feel like he's one of those characters that somebody should like get a hold of and kind of bring back to the light a little bit,
Yeah, I mean, like I read a few of his solo comics back in the day, but for years he would just sort of show up in other stories, which is fine. But yeah, when I saw him, I was like, oh yeah, Captain Atom. I feel like I haven't seen him in a minute. So they defeat the Rogues, they defeat the Reverse Flash, and then the Flash takes off, and then we get the title card of Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox, which is a heck of a mouthful of a name, but also I'm like, I get it. If you just call it Flashpoint, I don't know if they wanted Justice League in the title.
The attention, yeah.
Yep.
And I want to give a quick nod to Fawn's dedication to making the Flash suffer and destroy and everything else, and that like not once but at least twice in this film he's been at a point where, well, if this happens you're gonna die too, and he's just like, yeah, that's fine,
I'm okay with that,
to put you down.
Yeah, I know.
Like that's dedication to your quest for vengeance, because most guys in that situation like him would be sniveling little cowards that would be like, save me, and he's just like, nah, screw it. You guys if it takes you guys down, I'm in.
I know, right? Small price to pay, my own life. And anyway, so then Barry wakes up and the world has changed. He has memories of everything, of his whole life, but he is now in this other universe where everything is different and his mom is alive. And so he realizes he's not the Flash. He doesn't have powers. His mom is alive. Nothing makes sense. And so he realizes that somehow he ended up in a different timeline. And I guess I'll get it out of the way now. This is my issue with the movie. Is the somehow, the question mark, they treat it like a mystery because they want the reveal at the end. Because like through the whole movie, Barry is convinced, oh, it's Thawne. Thawne did this, and now I have to correct it. And then in the end, Thawne's like, no, you did this. Don't you remember? And Barry's like, oh yeah, I went and saved my mom. And I was like, wait, what? Do you remember that or don't you? Because the whole movie, you didn't seem to remember that you did that. And then in the climax, all of a sudden you do remember you did it. So
Well,
it doesn't make any sense.
they kind of set that up, but not maybe the greatest, in that they talk at certain points through the movie about how he's gathering more memories from this current timeline, and like the old memories are more distant now, something along that line. So I guess that's how they're justifying that reveal. But I feel like there was a better way to approach this at the beginning, and instead of playing it like a mystery, or take a different path with the mystery, like Thawne figures out that's what Barry's going to do, and he kind of intercepts at the same time, and they both kind of alter. I don't know. I'm no writer, as I've said many times. But
well, here's the thing though. Here's the problem with that, because again, this was I remember having this problem the first time I saw it, and again now, where I'm like, I get that you wanted the reveal, but you'd better write it better, because when he wakes up, he only remembers his old life, everything up until the last night, which is when, in theory, he must have gone back and saved his mom. So he remembers all of it. He doesn't remember any of his new life. And then you're right, as the movie goes along, those two memories start like overlapping, and he starts remembering the new life and he starts forgetting the old life. But when he wakes up and he doesn't know what happened, he still remembers everything. So he remembers everything except what he did.
sure.
It just doesn't make sense. And then again, like, so yes, like I appreciate what they wanted to do, which is have the twist of it wasn't Thawne, it was you. But if that's the case, then have his memory be Swiss cheese the moment he wakes up, and that solves your problem. Is that he wakes up and already he's like missing pieces, and he's like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. And like if that's what happens, then you go, okay, then he doesn't remember what happened. But they didn't do that, which, so anyway, that's just frustrating. I'm like, what'd you get? Like, anyway, it's just weird that that's the answer. And it's like, well, yeah, you should have already known that. And it seems like the movie's not going to do that. The movie knows exactly what he did, and he screwed it up, and he's trying to fix it. And my memory is, even on the show, when they like he knows what he did. He knows what he tried to do, and how had to fix it. So here, trying to play it as a mystery, I think they kind of tripped themselves up.
Yeah,
so
I think that's fair.
Anyway, because yeah, I mean, the whole thing is, he's like, something happened to the timeline. I don't know what happened to the timeline. It must have been Thawne. And so I've got to find a way to fix it. And so he seeks out the only one who can help him, Batman. Who else is there? And again, watching this last night with Catherine, she had never seen it. She's like, no, it was really good. I really liked it. She goes, but it makes sense in the movie, instead of it being like Thomas Wayne, to do like an alternate reality Batman. That makes sense. I'm like, I know, right? It actually is a pretty good solution to like go, well, instead of teaming up with Thomas Wayne Batman, he teams up with an alternate reality Bruce Wayne Batman. That works just as well. And so I think it makes sense. I think it's a good way of doing it. But all that is to say, Jeffrey Dean Morgan would have been a great Thomas Wayne Batman.
Sure would.
That's another one of those missed opportunities where you're like, man, he just would have been so perfect.
I mean, for that matter, Lauren Cohen as the Joker.
Yeah. And that's one of those nods they do, is they do the nod that like Martha becomes the Joker, but they don't go too deep into it. They just kind of do the nod. If you know, you know, and they move on.
Yeah, obviously the book was much more involved in that aspect.
But I appreciate, like, there is the moment. Again, I do think it's a good device that, as the longer he's in the timeline, the more memories he gains. And that allows for quick little dumps of info that we need, where he remembers what happens with the Waynes. He remembers what happens between the Atlanteans and the Themyscirans. And he remembers those things. And so we, as the audience, we get those little backstory downloads of this other timeline in a way that makes sense. And I thought that's really well done because it gets us through a lot of material pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. This thing, as you mentioned already, this thing wastes no time getting anywhere it's going.
Oh no. And again, like, and I think it does it efficiently too. It never feels like too much or it's rushed, but like it hits every point it needs to, but I feel like it does it just right.
Agreed. I don't think that's any way indicating that we think it's a weakness. I just feel like, we complimented Batman in the animated series for the several years that we were reviewing that. And we always said, man, how do they get so much jam packed into 22 minutes? And this feels like the hour and 20-minute version of that same sentiment to me.
Yeah, totally. And like we've certainly seen not versions of this, but we've seen other things where we go, oh, it bit off more than it could chew. Like Green Lantern
Certainly.
Beware My Power, like
Yeah.
it tried to do too many things. It couldn't do justice to them all, so it doesn't quite work. This bit off a lot, and it could have been more than it could chew, but I think that the script by Jim Krieg, the direction by Jay Oliva, I think is just right in that it manages to balance all these elements, make it make sense, make it work as a movie, whether you know the comic or not. Like, really well done. But Barry does find Batman. He thinks it's Bruce. Thomas Wayne gives him a good beating in the Batcave. Before finally convincing him that he is from an alternate timeline. He mentions that, in my timeline, your son, Bruce, is Batman. Thomas does not like him mentioning his son. Breaking his fingers. Poor Barry.
He's kind of a mean Batman.
He is a very mean Batman. Yep. And he is also very much the Punisher Batman with the guns.
Yeah, he's the anti-Adam West.
Yep. I've always liked the look, though. I've always liked the Thomas Wayne Batman costume. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, the red eyes, the little, the wing hooks coming up off the shoulders.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this to you in a chat the other day. The style of like the straps around the legs of his costume is very much similar to the stuff that we've seen from Batfleck in the alleged Flash movie. I don't know if that's on purpose or just some buck wild coincidence, but I was watching it the other day and I paused it so I could send you that message. I'm like, has anybody brought up the point that Thomas Wayne's Bat costume looks a lot like Batfleck's in the trailer? So
I can certainly see some similarities. So you're right. It could be just a nod to the source material, which I think is fun.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, while this is happening, like the whole world, it's kind of a Watchmen scenario where like they're all waiting for like the end of the world. But this time it's because the Atlanteans are at war with the Themyscirans. And those two groups are so caught up in their war, they don't care what collateral damage they leave in their path. And I always thought that was a very clever conceit of the Atlantean Themysciran War and why it happens and Aquaman versus Wonder Woman. I really like that element. I think it's really cool.
It makes tremendous sense that, these two powerful human but not human races are vying for domination. Everything about that just perfectly works for me.
Yeah, I think it's such a great element, and I am 99% certain that one has completely been jettisoned for the Flash movie, and that makes perfect sense. Is like then it becomes a different movie, but for this story, I always thought it was a really great conceit.
Agreed. And some people, I'm sure, with the purist mentality, are not happy about villainizing Wonder Woman and Aquaman and all that, and I appreciate that. But again, when it comes to something that I've had multiple versions of over the years, if you want to start tinkering around and giving me something fresh, I appreciate that, and I'll go along for it as long as it's well done. And in my opinion, this is well done.
Well, I agree, and I would be one of those people if this was the Aquaman and Wonder Woman that we know and love. If
Sure.
if this was a mainline story where all of a sudden they started this rivalry and they started this war, I'd go, I don't know if I like this. But for an alternate reality where everything is a little off, everything's a little changed, including Batman, I have no issue with it because, yeah, like this version of Wonder Woman, this version of Aquaman, they're not the versions that we know and love. And so I like it as a spin on those characters. And again, when you think about something that could doom the entire world, a war between these two incredibly powerful societies makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like it. I always thought it was very clever. I appreciate why it happened. I love the idea of them having an affair and Mara finding out and Wonder Woman killing Mara, and that causes the war. And I'm like, God, like that little flashback sequence. I remember watching this for the first time. This is a violent and gory DC animated movie. And so yeah, with Wonder Woman taking Mara's head, I was like, oh, what are you guys doing? And then I also love the element of she takes Mara's crown too and wears it as a warning. I think that's great.
Yeah. That conversation between her and Arthur at the end too is because he says, you wear it like a trophy. No, I wear it as a warning. That whole exchange between them during that moment I thought was really solid.
Yeah, I agree. I gotta look now. Is this rated R? No, it's PG-13.
That's a rough PG-13, pal.
Yeah, because there's some really violent stuff for PG-13.
There's beheadings, there's holes in heads, there's spinal severances,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of stuff like that going on in here.
There's Cyborg's exposed heart.
Yeah.
Like yeah, it's a pretty. I honestly expected it to be R based on the violence, but
I was going to say, I promise you, if any of that stuff was done in live action, it would be.
Yeah, no kidding.
Maybe they ducked it because it was an animated or something.
Yep. So anyway, Batman and Barry says, the only way for me to fix this is to recreate the experiment, get me my powers back so I can do this. He does have his ring, but it has Reverse Flash's suit. That's never explained. Right? It's just I feel like we don't ever find out why why that's the case. Because he takes it as a way, Reverse Flash is taunting me and letting me know he did this. And if he had, that would make sense, but he didn't do it. So it's like, I don't really know why his ring has Reverse Flash's suit in it.
I guess he's just screwing with him. Whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, he's just enjoying watching. And so, yeah, they do for me, it's, I think, one of the most iconic moments of the book that they recreate pretty perfectly here of trying to get the Flash's powers back and, strapping him to that chair and the thunderstorm. And I appreciate when he goes, we need really bad weather. And Batman goes, yeah, well, welcome to Gotham. Yeah. And recreating the experiment to give Flash's speed and then failing the first time, which is also really gnarly, of him getting struck by lightning and getting 3rd-degree burns. And he looks like a freaking burned to a crisp mummy. And the only solution is to try again. But yeah, for me, I think it's a very memorable part of every version of this story. And it is something that it looks like we will be getting a version in the Flash. There are things in the trailer that I'm like, that feels like that moment.
I'm betting it won't be quite as harsh.
Probably not. But it does eventually work. 2 times a charm. I just really appreciate the Frankenstein-ness of it.
Yeah.
After the first failed time and Batman checks him, he should have said, he's alive. Or it's alive. No? Okay, that's fine.
No, I was following. Yeah.
It eventually works. He gets his speed back, but he realizes he cannot go fast enough to break into the time stream. And that's because there is another speedster in this universe who is sucking power from the Speed Force, and that's got to be Zoom. So he knows Zoom is out there, and as long as Zoom is out there pulling power from the Speed Force, he can't get fast enough to go back and change anything. And then there's a lot going on with everyone else. Like Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan is not the Green Lantern here. He's still the test pilot, but he ends up having to fly the crashed ship of Abin Sur, but he doesn't actually get the ring. So that's what he's up to. Lois Lane she's still a reporter, but she's gone undercover with the Themyscirans trying to gather intel. Steve Trevor seems like he's in love with Lois Lane. He gets killed pretty quickly by Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I feel like that was one of those those things that happened really quickly. That's just to set up. This is not the DC universe that you are familiar with.
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like that was one of those moments to give a very strong indication of that.
for sure. And I do wonder if like, did Lois Lane have a spin-off book for Flashpoint where she was more of this like secret agent type character? I don't remember, but it feels like that's a nod to that. Cyborg is working with the government. He's essentially like the government sanctioned superhero, kind of like Superman in The Dark Knight Returns.
Mm.
Superman is missing. There is no Superman in this universe, they think. So yeah, like we kind of check in with everybody and even more. Like we said, Deathstroke and Lex were working. They get intercepted, they get killed after a pretty good battle.
Can
And I
we
will
just take a moment to express how great Aquaman's like inner circle entourage is in this movie?
That's exactly what I was about to say, but yes, please continue.
No,
I
just
completely agree.
him and Ocean Master and Black Manta and I think Calder's in there. I mean, just
Yeah. And
everybody
Tempest,
that you know from his. I'm sorry, who was that?
Tempest, who used to be Aqualad, but now he's Tempest.
Okay, yeah. So like all of them together, like Mara's the only piece missing, but obviously there in this story there's a good reason why she's not there. But like having them all be a force fighting together, holy shit, that was so awesome.
I agree. I thought the same thing. I'm like, I love that Aquaman has his own super team. He has the Justice League of Atlantis, and it's everyone from his universe, and they're all so cool. It's so fun to see them all working together. And yeah, that action scene of them taking over that ship where Lex and Deathstroke are, that's a great action scene, and it's so cool to see all of them there.
Quick little side story. We went out to dinner with a couple that we're friends with the other night, and I was wearing an Aquaman t-shirt when we showed up at this place to eat. And I was eating some French fries with tartar sauce on it, and tartar sauce dropped like right on Aquaman's face. And my wife could not stop laughing about that because she thought it was so ironically funny that tartar sauce fell on Aquaman's face.
I mean, yeah,
and then of course she's watching
one way to read that.
She's watching the final battle, and like Batman throws the stuff, and I mean, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but like she starts commenting about, was that lemon juice or drawn butter or what was that? You know, like just starts making all these comments about how to take down Aquaman with, you know, seafood stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Good.
At any rate.
Yeah, I mean his force is super powerful, and I love it. I love Aquaman's world anyway, and yeah, you're right. Like seeing all of them together is so cool. Lois gets saved by this other random like Justice League team of characters we don't know, but I remember them too. I can't remember their names. Let me
Wildcats.
see if I can... Is that their names?
Grifter is where the wild is from.
So yes, Grifter, absolutely. But there's a bunch of other randos in there too. Like it was something Cricket.
Yeah, I don't know who any of the other ones were.
Well, that's because I think they were all made up for Flashpoint.
Were they? Okay.
I think.
I just thought it was another one of those I'm a bad fan moment.
Someone's going to correct me, but I thought these were a bunch of random characters that were invented for Flashpoint.
Okay.
Because it was like, yeah, this alternate reality super team. I don't remember if they called themselves the Justice League or not. And I'm trying to find their names, but I can't. But I just loved those guys. And yeah, they only get a quick little scene and then they show up at the end. But I was like, man, I like them. They were fun. Yeah. Yeah, I can't find their names. Oh, well. Someone else knows. They're cool.
The one kind of reminded me of Forager from Young Justice.
Yes, that's the Cricket one. He was cool. I liked him. But they're all there, but she gets saved by a speedster who's Reverse Flash, and he makes sure that he is seen because he knows that it will draw the Flash out.
He's so clever.
He is. I like that he's just like, oh, the Flash broke the universe. I'm just going to follow him and watch everything, go to crap. And
he's
so
like an internet troll personified.
Yeah, he is. And so like the Flash is really, he wants to like help this world, but then he also wants to go back and change it. And so he does convince Batman and Cyborg and everyone to try and band together to find Superman, because if anyone can help, it's Superman. And they're like, there is no Superman. And he goes, no, there's gotta be. And they realize that Superman's ship landed elsewhere, and he's been in captivity ever since. So we get the tragic, emaciated, sad Superman.
The needs a sandwich Superman.
Yeah. And so they go
Sally
in and
Struthers had to
they
have been
bust
outside that place picketing. You know, I just
him. So they bust him out and they get him to sunlight, and he comes in handy, as he does, even in this world, Superman. So yeah, they get Superman, and at a certain point they're like, yeah, everything is like, it's kind of beyond hope. And Flash is like, no, like we need to do whatever we can. And if that means like stopping the Atlanteans and the Themyscirans, that's fine, but we need to do it. And we also have the Shazamily here. But in this version, they all become Shazam. So all the kids don't become their own superhero. They all become one superhero in Shazam. And did you notice they call him something else?
Captain Thunder, I believe.
Captain Thunder, yeah. Is
Captain
like,
Sparkle Fingers would have been better, but
well, it was before that time. Which I'm like, I don't know if that's been used anywhere else, but I'm like, I feel like that's kind of a good solution to the whole, what do you call him if you're not going to call him Captain Marvel anymore? And Shazam, so yeah, you kind of call him that, but not like, I don't know. I thought Captain Thunder kind of worked.
yeah.
But it was an interesting angle, like that I was not expecting that they all became Shazam. I was expecting them all to become the Shazamly because we're so used to that now.
Sure. It was an interesting approach. I mean, that makes sense that the unification, makes them more powerful or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess if I think about it too much, it may not make all that much sense, but I didn't mind it.
It was kind of like a version of Ultron.
Yeah. That was
They
my
all
jam
get
back in the day.
sucked into the one, yeah. But yeah, like, the Flash manages to get, convince enough of these heroes, like, well, we need to do what we can. We need to stop them and save the world in the process. And they know that Aquaman has a weapon of mass destruction. And it turns out that's Captain Atom. So again, I thought that was actually a really cool plot point of like, they mentioned earlier on as, we sent Captain Atom in, he disappeared. And now the Aquaman is using him as a nuclear weapon. So I thought that was clever. But it all kind of leads to the big, the big, huge finale, the big, huge, massive battle. And it's not only with the Flash and Batman and Cyborg, it's now with these cameos of all these other heroes too. And it's a hell of a final battle.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's really good. And you get Aquaman and Wonder Woman finally coming face to face again and having this, they dig up the past of, you killed my wife. Well, she tried to kill me first, and blah blah blah.
It's all just a big misunderstanding.
It is, right? It's
and
just
if
like
Arthur could have kept his minnow in his pants, none of this would have happened.
None of this would happen. And Batman's doing great, and I think there's a moment where like he and Grifter, they're like, "Hey, I like your style." But Aquaman manages to get him, and so he's dying. And there's a final battle between the Flash and Reverse Flash that I think is also really awesome, where they're fighting and they're going everywhere in super speed, but they're also arguing. And it's the moment where, Reverse Flash is like, oh, wait, you think I did this? No, you did this. And the Flash is like, oh, yeah, I guess I did. But I do appreciate that he's like, but how would that have affected things that happened before my mother's death? And I appreciate, like, there's a logic to it. It's time travel, so who knows, but at least they give a reason of like, oh, you don't just affect that moment. Like when you mess with the time stream, there are ripples, and it affects things that came before and it affects things that came after, and it changes everything ever so slightly. And so I appreciated that they at least acknowledge that and give some sort of logic for why everything is different and not just things surrounding the death of Nora Al.
I feel like every time travel story just kind of needs to establish its own set of rules.
Yeah.
And I think any of them, I don't care how good they are, from Back to the Future to this to whatever, Time Cop, it there's always holes that can be poked in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's always holes or logic or something that just may not quite line up if you go with it, which is probably why my favorite time, and this sounds preposterous, my favorite time travel thing was the Austin Powers one, where
yes, I've gone cross-eyed. Yeah.
And Basil just says, it's best to just go along with it. And that goes for you too.
Yeah.
So basically saying, we know time travel is inherently flawed when you try to get the logic out of it, but it's meant for entertainment purposes, and just go with what we're showing you. That's all you got to do. I think even Looper kind of did a more serious, shorter version of that when they were having the conversation. So,
but anyway, I liked the logic of oh no, if you mess with the time stream, there are repercussions before and after. I'm like, oh, I can buy that. I liked it. And I liked that whole final battle between the two of them. I thought it was really good. It was really exciting. It was cinematic. It was a good epic battle, hero versus villain. I thought it was awesome. I will say, just to go back, because he's talking about like saving his mother, I do love the moment where he realizes his mother is alive, and he hugs her and he realizes that she's with him. I wish they'd revisited his mother at some point in the movie to give us a moment where Barry actually gets to enjoy being back with his mother. Because from the moment Barry and his mother reconnect, at that point, Barry's off trying to solve things, and he never goes back and sees his mom. And it's like, listen, I know you want to fix things, but I just wish there was like a nice little emotional scene where he actually gets to go have dinner with his mom, where they get to talk. And it could have been that at that very beginning. Like they could have shown us them at dinner where he's just so happy to have that moment that he never thought he would have again. I'm like, like they just jumped so quickly to we got to solve this, that I wanted a moment, a more meaningful moment with the mom.
Understandable. This is another one of those. I'm certain both of us would agree on the point of, if you're going to have one that hits that 85 to 90 minute mark, maybe this is the one that needed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to say they didn't do an efficient job with everything they were doing. And I don't feel like a lot that's shorted, but another 5 to 10 minutes, I think, really would have improved an already great concept and story here.
Oh yeah, for sure. And again, like I give them all the credit in the world for spinning as many plates as they did in this movie. So I get it. Like they had a lot of ground to cover. So I get it. But you're right. Just a couple extra minutes where you could have slowed down for that emotional beat, I think would have been nice. But again, I get why it didn't happen, because they had a lot of stuff they needed to do. I will say the very first time I remember it, and it worked again this time, is when, Reverse Flash is like, well, you can't fix it anyway, because I'm here, and I'll never let you be able to, have enough power in the Speed Force. And then there's just that, you hear that gunshot.
Yes.
And it's like, and the fact that the shot goes through the hole in his head to show us that Batman pulled the trigger it's such a great moment. It's so unexpected. It's so effective. And again, that's the moment where I'm like, really? PG-13? Okay.
Yeah. That's a little bit on the graphic side there.
Yeah. But I appreciate that. And, through the fight with Aquaman and Wonder Woman manages to defeat Aquaman, which means Aquaman sets off Captain Atom, which means there's no going back.
Aquaman pulled the Predator.
He did. And so Thomas, tells the Flash, he goes, there's only one way to save the world, and that's to prevent this world from ever happening. And he gives him a letter, and he says, you have to stop it. And then Yeah, the Flash does his big run, outrunning that blast to go back in time, and without Zoom, he's able to do it. And he sees himself going back to change things from the beginning, manages to stop himself, and gets the universe back to where it should be.
And
And
I feel
so,
like this brings us to the one moment in this film that I never feel like has left the geek circle public fan consciousness, and that is the delivery of that letter to Bruce.
yeah.
Like so many people have that down as one of their top Batman moments, and rightfully so, understandably so. It's a fantastic moment, but like for all of the things that I may not have remembered, having been 7 or 8 years since I've watched this thing, that is the one thing I feel like several times a year it gets brought up and
Mhm.
starts a
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
And it's truly a great moment, and it was very, very well done.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's an amazing scene. It was an amazing scene in the comic, and I love how they do it here. I love that his first stop is to go check in with Batman and to tell him everything that happened. I think that's great. It was nice to hear Kevin Conroy again too. But yeah, I love that he's like, yeah, here's everything that happened. And he said the crazy thing is I still remember both timelines. And I appreciate Batman's answer of, well, maybe it's a gift, is to have all these extra memories with your mom. And then yes, he delivers that letter, and like you said, it's become an iconic Batman moment. Even the audio clip is used in our Wayne Manor mailbox, thanks to Gorev.
Yeah.
But yeah, he gives him that letter, and I always appreciated the restraint of never really showing us, the audience, what's in the letter, because it doesn't really matter.
No. And I remember I didn't do it this time, but I remember back when this first came out, maybe the second or third time I watched it, I paused and I got up close trying to read what the letter said. And it doesn't give a tremendous amount of detail. It just basically says something to the effect of fight for what you love, or something along those lines. And
Mhm.
as you say, that's not the point. The point is Bruce having that communication with his father that he probably hasn't had for 25 to 30 years at this point.
Yeah.
And him recognizing his father's handwriting immediately. I mean, that's just the whole thing. It's relatively quick. I think the whole thing probably takes less than 30 seconds, but it's so effective and so memorable, and it's beautiful. I love it.
No, I completely agree. It is great. And especially because, yeah, like the Flash Barry now has, it's not closure, but he gets more time with his mom one way or another, and he never thought he would have that. And to be able to give a little bit of that to Bruce, where he gets a little bit, just an extra moment with his father that he never thought he would get. Yeah, it's a beautiful and it's an emotional moment, and it's played so well. And the tears in his eyes, and it's such a great emotional beat to go out on.
That moment made Leroy mad at me because
Why?
because he was pissed off about one of the Nolan movies where Batman would never cry, and I'm like, hey Leroy, remember this moment? And he's like, F you.
um and so then the Flash takes off, and I also love, we get this final emotional beat with Bruce, and then we get this final just badass Flash beat of him. It's like a showcase moment of the Flash running through the city, and it's so badass. The animation is amazing. It's beautiful. I love it as like, it's sort of the Flash's version of the final swing sequences in the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
And I think it's awesome. And that's the Flashpoint Paradox.
Minus the post credit scene.
Right. So you're right. There's a quick little post credits tease of a bunch of invading parademons, which led to Justice League War. So I guess even this teed up the new 52 reboot.
More or less, yeah.
So what's your favorite part in the Flashpoint Paradox, Jamie?
Oh man, that's tough. I mean, the obvious answer is that moment we just talked about at the end where he delivers the letter. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's the potentially the most emotionally strong point in a movie that has quite a few emotionally strong points in it. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of a less obvious, less cliche answer. but I
Well,
can't because
let's just
it's
agree
just
that let's agree that that's the best part.
okay.
So no, second best.
Second best. I think maybe the stuff with the Atlantean Superforce. I just love those moments where, like, I feel like Orm and Black Manta just lay waste to everybody that's in front of them, and I was just like, hell yeah, I'm in.
All right, good.
But there's tons of great moments. I'm sure if I sat down and compiled a top 5 list, I'm sure I would come up with better, stronger answers than that. But like, I don't know. This movie's chock full of really good stuff.
I agree. And yeah, there's no wrong answer. It's fine. Um, I think I will go with the final battle between the Flash and Zoom. I think it's great. It's great from a storytelling perspective and from an action perspective, and then leading it all up to that final beat where the Batman kills Zoom. That whole sequence, I think, is really great, and it's a great climax to the movie. After the
Agreed.
letter moment, obviously.
Sure.
All right, so why don't you give some closing thoughts and a letter grade for the Flashpoint Paradox?
Speaking as somebody who did this, if it's been a while since you've revisited this movie, it's high time. It's worth the attention. It's worth going back down that list. I know a lot of you out there are probably far more regular about watching this than I have been, and rightfully so. It's a great one. It's one of the best, in my opinion, of the entire DC animated run, and I think I'm going to try and be more frequent about it. I just don't have the time to sit around and watch things like I used to, unfortunately, and uh, yeah, I'm going to have to try and solve that going forward. That this is a truly great movie. It's an awesome story. It's got emotion. It's got action. Again, really the only thing I think I would change would be some of the animation and character design cues. But past that, I just don't have any complaints that hold this one back for me. So for me, this is a solid A.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It is a great one. I do think it's one of the best of the DC animated universe. I think the story is told really well, really effectively. They balance so much and it all works. It's one of those that, I think that we're hoping for with The Flash is it's a great Flash movie, it's a good Batman movie, and it's a great DC Universe movie. And it's a good story on top of all that. And I think that they pull it off really well here. I loved revisiting it. Like you said, it had been years, and not for lack of want. It's just, yeah, like you said, there's only so much time. And I was so happy this gave us a reason to revisit it before we see The Flash, because it's a great way to get ready for it. I had a couple, like I said, my couple little nitpicks, but they're really minor. Overall, I think it's a great movie. I'm docking it a little bit because of the whole he doesn't remember that he changed the past. What? So I'll give it an A minus.
You just always have to one down me, don't you?
Well, this time, yeah, this time. But overall, it's a great one, guys. If you haven't seen it in a while, like Jamie said, go back, give it a shot. I think you'll like it. Or if you've never seen it, shame. I think you will like it too.
I feel like everybody in the geek community has seen this one at this point. I don't
I
feel
mean,
like
you
this is.
you would think, but you never know.
I mean, everybody's got a blind spot here and there, but I feel like this would be a massive blind spot for anybody that's a fan of comic book
A
based
DC
superhero
fan.
stuff. Yeah.
So, Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox. It's on HBO Max, allegedly, or you can pick up a copy. I watched my own copy, but it's a good time. Hope you guys dig it, and it's a great way to get prepped for a version of this story on the big screen in just a couple weeks.
I'll tell
But
you another little thing. Usually when they release a new movie for Marvel, the Marvel movies go on sale, DC, the DC movies go on sale. And they've cycled, I think when Shazam Fury of the Gods came out, they had a bunch of the DC films that were on sale for like between $4.99 and $7.99. And I'm going back and like filling gaps for the animated films that I didn't own digitally.
okay.
And like there's like 4 or 5 of these that never go on sale, and it's really starting to piss me off because I really don't want to spend $13 to $15 to buy them when I know I can walk my lazy ass down 2 flights of stairs and get it off the shelf. So both of the Green Lantern movies never go on sale.
Oh, really?
The oh god, what was the other big one that I just saw? Shit, I can't remember now. Anyway, like I say, there's a small handful of them that for some reason they never ever ever go on sale. So I'm
Interesting.
eventually just gonna have to bite the bullet if I want them in my collection and just pay full price, which hurts my soul, but not as much as having gaps in my collection.
I get it. I mean, when these first started coming out, and I think even with Flashpoint, I was still buying them like immediately. And now I always give it a little time because eventually they go on sale, and that's when I pick them up. All right. Well, we're not done with animated Batman just yet because we are going to review the next episode of The Batman. This is the season finale of season 1.
It is?
Look at us go. Yep.
Not according to HBO Max, it isn't.
I know, which is so weird. But yes, according to Wikipedia, this is the end of season 1. The next episode is the beginning of season 2. But yes, I noticed that when it jumped to the next episode, it said season 1, episode 14, which is weird. Why can't any of these animated series pick an episode, order, and organization consistently?
Reasons.
Because we had this problem with Batman the Animated Series. I have this problem with Futurama. Got this problem with the Batman. Guys, just pick episode numbering and stick with it. Anyway, this is part 2 from the one we reviewed last time. The last time was the Rubber Face of Comedy. This is the Clayface of Tragedy. It's episode 13 of season 1, and it picks up right where we left off. And that is Ethan Bennett had been exposed to some Joker putty gas, and now his face is melting off. And he becomes Clayface. If you didn't see it coming, I think you did. And so now Bennett is Clayface, and he is not only broken in body, his mind is not quite what it used to be. And he goes after his old captain, the police, because he suspended him. So now there's this Clayface on the loose. Batman and Yin both realize it's Bennett, so they go to try to help him. He is able to start figuring out his powers, get enough of himself back where he can change to Bennett or to Yin or to whoever. But he is kind of lost it. He's out after Rojas, but Yin and Batman team up to stop him, and they're like, it's not too late. We can still help you. And there's some really cool animation and some action with Clayface, but eventually he does escape. And so Yin and Batman come to this new agreement where they will work together after all this because they want to help Bennett. This one aired on May 7th of 2005. It was directed by Sung Yun Kim and written by Greg Weisman. So this version of Clayface we got. Jamie, what do you think?
So some of the things of the show are pretty polarizing for me, but I'm happy to report the Clayface thing pretty much worked for me. I mean, it's definitely a different look and translation of the character than what I know from other media, but I think it was well done. I think it encompasses a tragic character who has these amazing abilities to shapeshift and form weapons and be a true menace to, the heroes of Gotham, if you will. And I think it's really well done. I appreciated this story a lot, even going back to the last episode, and I think they just did it well. The design is obviously different from what we know, but I don't mind it. I don't think it's so far removed that I just look at it and just sigh and go, gosh, I wish they would have done this better. I think it's following the continuing trend of them doing their own aesthetics for the show, which is fine. We've got so many other versions. If you don't like this, there's other ones to go to. But again, once I have these other versions, if you want to vary a little bit, I'm okay with it, as long as everything still feels right. And to me, that character, even though, origins are different and whatnot, it felt right to me. The voice is creepy. The look is creepy. I mean, it's really got a lot of like a horror element to it, especially for a show that leans toward kids. But yeah, I think this episode was pretty well done. And I really like this version of Clayface.
Great. I agree with you. I think it's a really good one. I think this is a great two-parter. I love how the Joker's actions lead to the creation of Clayface. And like I said when we reviewed the last one, if there is a character you want to just completely do a brand new version of, Clayface is a great one because it's happened so many times anyway. So it's like there's so many versions of Clayface, why not just do one more? And I think this one works really well. I like it being Bruce's friend. I like it being Bennett. Like you said, he certainly looks different than other Clayfaces, but he still looks like Clayface. He's gray instead of brown. The eyes are different. Like the look is different, but it's close enough that you go, oh yeah, that's Clayface. So I like the tragic quality of this version of Clayface. Like I said, I think the animation of his powers and the action and everything is all really well done. So yeah, it works for me too. I think it's a really good episode. It's, I think, a nice way to wrap up where the whole story with Bennett was going the whole time, and to finally get that tenuous partnership with Yin finally makes sense. And so, yeah, I think it's a really good one too. I like this version of Clayface. I agree with you.
And I really feel like they're setting up, and somebody that knows the show better than me would have to catch me if I'm wrong, but I feel like they're setting it up where Yin is more or less going to be this Batman's version of Gordon.
Yeah. I think Gordon does finally show up, but it's been a while. I don't remember if that's true, but I think he does.
This is all first time stuff for me with this
show.
Oh,
I know. But for now, you're right.
But yeah, I really am seeing a steady improvement over the course of the last several episodes. I think they're tightening it up. Obviously, we've said multiple times they're finding their footing. They're getting an idea of where they want to go with it, and I think the quality's improving because of that. I think they're showing up and showing out, and I'm honestly, instead of just kind of being like, I'm now looking mostly forward to what's coming down the pipe for this.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
Still would have rather done Brave and the Bold, but hey, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I agree. For me, like the last 4 episodes have been all really, really good. And this is a great season finale, if that's what it is. But yeah, it's very cool. So I like it. And it almost makes all the time with Yin and Bennett worth it.
I will say this though, that the captain or whatever he is, that dude's clown shoes. I've had enough of him. He can go away now.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be around much longer. I also do appreciate, well, I don't know if I appreciate it, but I was thinking as I was watching, because I thought what was going to happen is, like with the cliffhanger from the last one where Bennett's face started like melting off. And I thought, oh, it's going to be the next day or the next week. No, like it's like Halloween 2. It picks up in that moment and it keeps going. And there's a moment where like Bruce is like, all right, well, that's enough for today. I'm going to bed. And then the Batwave goes off and he's like, never mind. There's a clay monster. I got to go back out. So all of this is in one night. Last episode and this episode, it's all one night. And I was just like, man, this is the most exhausting night ever. Maybe I'd be a bad Batman because I'd be like, I just want to go to bed and we're still doing this. Like it goes into the next day and then I think into the next night. I think Batman is up for like 48 hours.
If you were the billionaire trust fund, baby, you would have done studies with Tibetan monks realizing how you can rest and recharge yourself without ever actually having to close your eyes or something like that.
I guess so, because if I was him, I'd be like, maybe this clay monster can wait until 9 a.m. I got to go to bed. So, but no, it's a good one. I agree. I really liked it. All right. Well, I'll go first. You can one up me or one down me. I'm going to go right where I was with Flashpoint, A-.
Same, A-.
All right, great. So that wraps up the first season of The Batman. Look at us go. Next one up is the first episode of season 2. Unless you're watching HBO Max, then it's still season 1. I don't know. It is the return of Catwoman. Oh, and it sounds like she's teaming up with the Penguin. It is the Cat, the Bat, and the Very Ugly. That's kind of fun. Kind of excited to see a team up. I like
if
a
it's if it's set at Christmas, I call shenanigans.
We shall see when we get to it. I feel like it might be a couple episodes before we get to it because we got the Flash coming. We got
we're going to be kind of busy here for a minute. So
yep, we got a lot going on.
Allegedly. We'll see what happens with this release.
Well, when we get to it, we will do the Cat, the Bat, and the Very Ugly season 2 of the Batman. But now, let's check in with you, fine feathered finks. Let's crack open the Wayne Manor mailbox. It's time again for the Wayne Manor mailbox.
You've got mail.
Darren, what is a letter for me?
Maybe temporary.
She wrote a letter.
You're one hell of a messenger. This is all, Master Wayne.
All right, we got quite a few. It's been a minute, so we got a few piling up. We'll see how we do. First one is from Matthew Harridge. Sorry, Matthew. It says, hey guys, I wanted to bring up a random and minor nitpick and see what you thought. From Batman the Animated Series to the New Adventures, it always bugged me that they updated every character's look except for Dick's Robin costume. It just feels out of place. Like I said, it's minor, but I'm curious if you had any thoughts. Anyway, here's a picture of my balls. JK. Thanks, Matthew. I'm glad it was a JK. Interesting. I guess you're right. I'll tell you, I've never noticed. So it has never been a nitpick of mine. If anything, I was probably happy that because a lot of those redesigns I thought were downgrades, I appreciated that they didn't downgrade Dick's Robin costume. But I feel like by the New Adventures, it was like only in flashbacks, right? Because like by the New Adventures, it was Tim in the new Robin costume. Jamie, thoughts?
I hadn't caught any bit of that, so this is all news to me.
Yep, fair enough. I'll keep an eye out for it. But again, I love the Robin costume, so I'm glad they didn't mess with it. But they did do a new version for Tim. So again, I never really thought about it. Next message is from Ryan Fluger. It says, hey guys, I'm one of the fans who was rolling their eyes every time that you talked about the Flash movie or Ezra Miller. Now, 6 months later, I'm Googling if midnight releases are still a thing and if I can go and see it right away and waiting for my favorite DC podcast to drop a new episode about the trailer. So my question is, have you noticed a switch from other fans? To me right now, it feels like this movie put a shot of adrenaline into the DC universe. And follow-up question, if Brendan is here, ask him what his favorite scene from Batman Returns is. Take care. Keep doing what you do, Ryan. Thanks, Ryan. So, interesting. And Ryan, I think you're right. I don't think you're alone. I've seen a lot of fans who were not excited for the Flash, who were actively rooting against the Flash. I'm not saying that was you, Ryan, but I'm saying others who, after the first trailer, all of a sudden were counting down the days till they could see it. And I'm not talking about some random stranger on Twitter. I'm talking about people I know. So you're not the only one who has changed their tune after seeing the trailer for The Flash. And what's interesting is that now that people have seen the movie, I have seen reactions that go, well, now I get why they didn't kill it. Now I get why they didn't shelve it because, yep, you shouldn't have. So, Ryan, I don't think you're alone. And that's, I think, the best possible testimonial you could give about the excitement around The Flash is that people who did not want to see it or people who were saying kill it now can't wait to buy tickets.
Yeah, that's me. Because I've the bitterness over the whole Batgirl cancellation thing. I was like, you know what, screw the Flash, cancel the Flash, bring Batgirl back. I was so over the Flash at one point because I was so tired of getting it yanked out from underneath me. And I just got bitter toward the whole thing. And that's why I was so jaded. That's why I still carry on the whole thing of until I see it, it does not exist. I was over it, way over it. And then trailers and then a couple reactions and, them releasing this much press about it, reactionary wise, this much in advance. It's like they've got a lot of faith in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Having an advanced screening almost a month out for, Gen Pop people going to see it. That is a lot of friggin' faith in this movie. A lot. So, yeah, I'm not tracking what other people are watching or saying right now because I won't even log into my Twitter account. I'm on 100% blackout. I told Andy I don't even want to know his reaction to the movie when he sees it several weeks before I do. I'm off. So I can't tell you what the buzz is around it, but I can tell you I'm one of the converted at this point. So for whatever that's worth.
I'm still going to send you my reaction.
I don't want it.
Tough crap.
I don't want to.
I'm going to go, Jamie, it's garbage. It's not even a Flash movie. They might as well just call it Batman.
I don't even want that. I don't want to know jack shit.
All right, great. I'll just send you jack shit.
All right. Or you can send me the whole movie, in which case I'll pay attention.
Okay. All right, next message is from, oh my God, what is it? Who is it from? It's our pal Jim Scroggs. It says, very important life-changing question. In Batman 89, does Joker say, where does he get those wonderful toys? Or how does he get those wonderful toys? Jim, you're right. These are the hard-hitting questions that we like to get in the Wayne Manor mailbox. Thank you for putting us on the spot. It's where. Okay, good. I'm glad we agree. Jim, there you go. It's where. All right, next question is from Chris, the Objective Geek. Jamie, you missed the last
some homework.
You missed the last one, so
yeah, I know.
You're back. It says, hey guys, hope all is well. A few questions. I often find myself every day quoting superhero movies. For instance, when my kids ask for help and I don't feel like helping, I say the world will look up and shout, save us, and I will whisper, no. Or when one of them falls down, I will say, why do we fall? So are there any superhero quotes that you naturally say in life? Number 2, are there any moments from a superhero movie or TV show that even though you've seen them a billion times, still gives you goosebumps? For me, it's moments like when Batman tells Rachel who he is and glides away in Batman Begins, or when Bruce dons the cowl in Mask of the Phantasm, or Gordon's he's not a hero speech at the end of The Dark Knight. I literally get goosebumps every time. Last, thanks for answering my anime questions. It's cool if you're not into it. That being said, whispering, I'm also not a fan of Studio Ghibli or Miyazaki films. Like, I get it. They're whimsical, they're good looking, with some type of moral story, but they kind of bore me, and they're overhyped like Wes Anderson. Anyway, keep up the great work. Thanks, Chris. All right. Good questions. First question. Do you quote superhero movies in your everyday life, Jamie? And how so?
Yes. And I mean, it's so random and so many of them that I throw out there, just movie quotes in general. But yeah, the superhero is definitely in that mix. Off the top of my head, oh God, I feel like I've quoted Bane from Dark Knight Rises a lot in the last couple of years for some reason. I do.
He's very quotable. He's quotable. Yeah, I get it. Oh, anytime I hear someone sing, I go, what a lovely, lovely voice.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, my mind is blanking that I can't come up with any specifics from superhero films, but it's like they're so incorporated and ingrained into me with all my movie quotes that I can't think of any examples that come up more frequently than others. Just know that absolutely does it get daily use out of me.
Agreed. I mean, it's every single day. I mean, how often do you and Brendan go 6? 6 is good.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, just the other day I was talking to Michael and Hunter mentioned someone who was not nice to him, and I just did a Knox. What a dick. Funny that both of those are Knox quotes, but yeah, it's still.
Well, I mean, legends are legends for a reason. Yeah,
it's very true. I mean, yeah, like all the time. I mean, what is it when crap? It's another Knox quote. I didn't mean to do this, but when, oh God, who was it? When Mike Flanagan was talking about Clayface, which that rumor has resurfaced, so we'll wait and see. I was like, that is not a denial. So I use just Knox quotes in my daily life. I mean, yes, I do others as well, but randomly those are the ones that have come to mind in the past few seconds. But yeah, I mean, no, all the time. I thought I was
Absolutely.
a Pisces. Yeah, like so many. And then any moments in superhero movies that even though you've already seen them tons of times, you still get goosebumps.
Again, it's almost my same answer
I mean,
to the first question. Like there's so many.
Doll.
But since it's fresh in my mind, since I'm going through my rewatches right now, I'm through 89 and Returns, and I'm about halfway through Man of Steel on my rewatch right now. And I probably haven't seen Man of Steel in maybe close to a year at this point. But there's a moment like this would have made my top DC moments had I been on that episode. And don't ask me to explain why this moment hits me every time. But that moment when Jor-El is escaping from the Kryptonians that are walking him down the hallway, and he runs out onto that terrace, and the camera just pans out and shows that whole battle that's happening around him.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he calls Haraka down. Like that whole moment, just talking about it has every hair on my body standing up. I love it so damn much. But I have that reaction to a lot of things in that movie. And shit, every time I watch that movie, I'm like, this movie is really effing good. Why do I not watch this thing once a week?
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, since you're talking Man of Steel, one of my favorite scenes, I will find him.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yes, that gives me goosebumps every time. The final moments of what are you going to do when you're not saving the world, I think is one of the most perfect endings to a superhero movie, and it still gets me every time. If we're going to Batman, just recently me and Brendan talk about our favorite Keaton moments. The final moment of Batman standing against the sky with the bat signal, that gets me every time.
The moment at the beginning with him dropping down behind the criminals is one of my all-time favorite anything scenes.
Yep. The Batman Begins final moments, I never said thank you,
and
is amazing.
Yes.
Yep, gets me every time.
Even going back to Man of Steel again, since it's so fresh in my mind, the moment where he's on the oil rig saving those guys, and he gets that moment where the helicopters, he's getting them on the helicopter, and that portion of that tower starts to come down, and he jumps over and catches it, and like every muscle in his body is like bulging out of his skin, and the drums from that Zimmer score are hitting so hard in that moment. Like that's, again, it's simple. It's not like particularly Cape heavy or DC heavy or anything else, but like that moment just drives me. Everything about that moment just works for me.
Yep. Oh God, I just thought of one. When Clark says goodbye to his mother in Superman the movie.
Yeah.
The whole Fortress of Solitude kind of montage in Superman the movie when he kind of goes in and he's learning everything from Jor-El. It's like so cool and dreamy, but it's goosebumps every time. I love that. I mean, yeah, like God, the Avengers Assemble moment in the Avengers. The ending of Captain America: The First Avenger when he's saying goodbye to Peggy over the radio and they're making their date. Like, just yeah. I mean, there's a million of them.
I love the Avengers so much. Still to this date, one of my favorite comic book movies ever made. But from the moment Banner rolls up on that motorcycle until damn near the point where the closing credits stop, you could put that whole bit on loop for me for the rest of my life, and I could probably go to my grave happy. I love that shit that much.
Yep. All right. Well, there's a bunch of them. But yes, that's an endless list, honestly. There's a reason we love these movies. All right. Next question is from Jake. It says, hey, I'm a huge fan of the podcast. I'm excited for The Flash coming out in a few weeks. I have a question. We know that Barry travels universes and time hops, so what do you think would happen if he died in a different universe than his own? Thanks for being so awesome, Jake. Oh, interesting question, Jake. So, I mean, it's like Wreck-It Ralph. If you die outside of your game, you don't regenerate. No? Okay.
I'm not a fan of that movie. So
well, that's because you have terrible taste.
Well, it's because that movie sucks. But anyway.
How dare you? How dare you come into my home and say these things to me?
I tell you, Hunter was throwing stuff right now, but he and I have had these conversations before, so now we just kind of shrug it off.
Wreck-It Ralph rocks, and I will not stand for
Hey,
this.
more power to you. I'm glad you guys love it. It ain't for me.
Anyway, what do you think? If Barry dies in another universe, Jamie, what happens?
I think he's dead. I don't.
Well, I think he's dead.
Answer
I
this
think he's
question.
dead too, right?
I don't know.
But
what
like,
to make of it.
like what happens to the universe? I think he just disappears in his own, right? Like in the, I will call it the prime timeline, the one he left. It's like he disappeared, and they never know what happens to him.
That seems as logical as any answer I could have ever come up with. So sure, why not?
Yeah, that's what I'm going with. Speaking of time travel plot holes that'll cook your noodle, have you ever gone down the road of like, if Marty McFly was gone in 1985, that means there's a universe where he never came back and he went missing, and so he couldn't visit himself in the future because he would have been gone.
See what I mean? The
It's a
more
whole
you think
thing.
about time travel,
It's a whole thing. Yeah. There are these really in-depth articles about if Marty McFly came back to the change timeline where like now his parents are successful and happy and blah, 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 blah. That means there was a Marty McFly that got stuck in his old timeline where everything was the opposite. Anyway,
this is giving me a.
when you're bored, go. Yeah. Drive yourself crazy trying to figure out time.
I would just as soon sit down and watch those 3 movies and be perfectly content to see them as represented and not have to put that much thought into it.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. All right. Next message is from Stephen Marshall. It says, "Hey guys, long time no speak. I hope you're well. It's been a while because I've been taking a break from DC because what happened with Henry Cavill absolutely broke me. However, with recent talk about David Corenswet being a frontrunner for Superman Legacy, I found my interest piqued. I got a buzz back that I hadn't felt in some time, and I realized how much I missed that. Now I'm trying to not get overhyped or emotionally behind David as Superman because he still might not get the role, but I hope he does. And if he does, I see myself taking more interest in Superman Legacy. My hope is that Nicholas Hoult is in for Lex and not Superman, as I think he would nail Lex, but I don't know if he's right for the Man of Steel. My personal hope for Lois is Samara Weaving, but those 3 would be incredible, don't you think? And how about Jensen Ackles as Batman in The Brave and the Bold? Anyway, sorry for rambling. I just want to say hey and explain why I haven't been around. Kind regards, Steven." Thanks, Steven. And good to hear from you. Yes, this is regarding a lot of these rumors of who are in the running for Superman Legacy. And Jamie, what do you think? Because I need to take a drink.
I think the only thing I know David Corenswet for, other than his name constantly circling around this character for a decade, wasn't he in Pearl? I think he was.
He was the projectionist in Pearl.
I feel like that's the first thing I've ever seen him in. And he seems to be a very good actor, and he's a handsome lad and all that stuff. So I'm not opposed to it. I don't know enough about him to get like hyper excited like everybody else seems to about it. So, if that's what happens, I'm in. We'll see what goes with it. As far as the Lois thing is concerned, the one that I heard just by casual glance that really got my attention was, and I'm going to screw up her name, I'm sure, Rachel Brosnahan.
Yeah. She's out there too. Yep.
Sign me up immediately for that because she is tremendous. My wife watches Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I have seen some episodes. I haven't watched the whole thing front to back like she has, but that is a tremendous actress. She's lovely. I am all for that idea. But I also wouldn't be supposed to Samara Weaving because I really like her too, but I would prefer Brosnahan for that part.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen what is considered the short list. I think that, Corenswet, again, it's been fan cast now for 3 years, 4 years. Like, ever since he showed up on The Politician on Netflix, it's been out there, and I would be all in on it because perfect is perfect. He looks like Superman. He'd be great. And he's only gotten better as an actor because he's continued to pop up and stuff. So I'm all for it. But like you said, Steven, I'm trying to not hold my breath because he didn't get the role yet. And so if it's someone else, I don't want to be too disappointed. But I'm with everyone who is excited about it because I do think that he's just spot on. Holt, I think, would be amazing as Lex. I love Nicholas Holt. I'm a huge fan. I want to see him as a hero. But if he's going to be Lex, I think he'd be great at it. I wanted to see him as a superhero.
I feel like if we didn't know the status of who's going to play Barry going forward, I feel like he would be a perfect Flash.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
But I don't want to discount Ezra because I think Ezra's a great actor too. And if he's going to stick around, I'm okay with it at this point, assuming things stay status quo and he stays out of trouble. And,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying. I'm a fan of his acting, and I'm glad he seems to have gotten his ship righted in his personal life at this point.
Yeah. And then Samara Weaving would be great. I've never watched this Miss Maisel show, but I hear she's great, so I'm going to just trust everyone who says it. So there seems to be some really good options for Lois, and I'm not, holding my breath for any of them because they all sound like they could work, so I'm okay with it. And then Jensen Ackles for Batman, I would be fine with it. It's another one of those that I think has been fan cast to death at this point. But I just looked it up, and he's already 45. He's older than me. So I feel like they probably want to go younger because now Jensen Ackles would be an older Batman, which is crazy to think, but that's how time works.
Yeah, I definitely want... How old's David Cornswet?
30?
Like right at 30 or like 38?
Hold on. Let me
find out because...
No, he's on the lower... He's on the lower end of 30. Oh, he's 29. He's 29.
Okay. I want somebody somewhere between the ages of 28 and 30 to play Batman then, because I want the two lined up.
Agreed.
Because I feel like for my entire life, I felt like those two might have been born on the same day. So I would like that to be kind of I don't want a 20-year age gap between them. I don't want that.
Yep. I agree. Yeah. So he's 29. He'll be 30 in July. He's coming up on 30. And which, again, I don't mean this in a bad way, but like when, some people have been like, well, if you're going to get him, you should just get Cavill back. And I'm like, that's its own thing. But Cornswet, he looks like Cavill, 10 years younger, maybe 50 pounds lighter, but buying yourself those 10 extra years makes a lot of sense because you're starting a new franchise. So there are a lot of reasons Cornswet's a great choice. And when folks are like, well, he just looks like Cavill, I'm like, well, no, they just both look like Superman. That's different.
I don't want to piss on anybody's parade. And as you can hear from me just talking about Man of Steel a few moments ago, how much I love that movie and how much I love him as Superman. But guys, please let it go.
That's where I am too, because and again, go back, check the tape. I love Cavill as Superman. I love Man of Steel. I love Zack Snyder's Justice League. I love BVS. So it has nothing against him. I just feel like, again, just kind of being practical is like, well, yeah, like going 10 years younger than Cavill makes a lot of sense, like, because
sure.
you're starting anew and that's fine. So anyway.
I would love it if he came back. I would love it if we got continuations. I'm with you in all of that process, but I'm also ready for something new. It's right. Okay to evolve because, as I've said time and time and time again, this character is bigger than one actor.
For sure.
And
agreed.
Whether or not he was done wrong or the circumstances were wrong or any of that stuff, sad as it may be, let's be glad for what we got, but let's also embrace what's coming because I get a feeling we're all going to be pretty happy going forward if we allow ourselves to be. So hanging up on bitter stuff of the past isn't going to help that. Just my 2 cents.
No, I think I agree with you. All right. Next message is from Caitlin Erke. Erke or Erke. Sorry, Caitlin. But anyway, it says, hey guys, I've been catching up on a lot of episodes. Growing up, I ever really watched Batman and Spider-Man. My dad also watched the old Incredible Hulk, but it scared me when he turned into the Hulk, so I would hide under the coffee table. I used to force my great-grandmother to watch the Grinch movie year-round, but I was scared of a man being painted green. Anyway, my dad got me into superheroes, but he's always been more of a Marvel fan. As you can probably tell, he mostly only watched Marvel, and yet to his chagrin, I ended up being a DC fan who's really only interested in a handful of Marvel characters. So you can imagine how he must feel. So I was born in 2000, and I grew up watching 4 of the old Batman movies, and I loved them all equally, give or take. As I got older, I was surprised to find out that the Schumacher movies were wildly unpopular. Now I can see why, but even still, Batman Forever will hold a special place in my heart, even if it's campy as hell. I definitely have a harder time with Batman and Robin. So here's my question. During a nonstop Taylor Swift marathon, her song Superman came on, and it made me wonder if you have a favorite song that references a DC character. About a year ago, I spent some time putting a playlist together, and I have a lot of favorites. I think Lois Lane by Olivia Lane is one of my favorites. I also love the Shazam reference in the continuing story by Bungalow Bill by the Beatles back when he was still known as Captain Marvel. Sorry, this is kind of long. Have a fantastic day, Caitlin. Thanks, Caitlin. And I get it. You're a DC fan in a Marvel household. That's got to be tough for you. But be strong. We're with you. I mean, I'm terrified that Harley is going to come out as a Marvel fan when she gets older. And I'm just going to have to deal with that when it comes. I love her no matter what. Anyway, so songs that reference DC. Jamie, any thoughts?
Oh. You ever hear of a group called Twisted?
No.
Oh, well, they're kind of like Insane Clown Posse. They kind of roll in the same crowds and everything. They have a song called "I Want to Be," and I would play it for you because it's not very long, but it's freaking hysterical. So look that up on like Apple Music or something later. Because it's basically it's a Batman reference, but like it's first of all it's the get the kids out of the room if you're going to listen to it, but it's silly, just pure silly. Silver Gun Superman by Stone Temple Pilots comes to mind only because my wife and I have listened to that album countless times over the course of the last 25 years or however long it's been. I don't know. I can't think of any others readily that feature DC. I remember there was a death metal band called Entombed that 30 or 35 years ago released an album called Wolverine Blues that had a picture of Wolverine on it. I know this isn't DC.
Oh, okay.
And I bought that, and then the thing got like recalled because they didn't pay proper royalties for usage of the song or anything else. So I have no idea if that CD's worth money, but I have it over in my rack right there.
So the first one that I thought of was the Five for Fighting Superman song. You know that one? I can't stand to fly. I'm not that naive. Anyway, I thought of that one. I like it. I don't know if I love it, but I like it. There's also, oh my God, there was that one Kryptonite song, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, now I have to look it up. Sorry about it. Three Doors Down, Kryptonite. Yes, that's that one.
I couldn't remember it either. I knew it was a number because every band had numbers in it during that era.
I liked that one. I like Bicycle Race by Queen, even though he says, Jaws was never my scene, and I don't like Star Wars, but he talks about Superman in that too.
Yeah. I love Freddie Mercury, but that does make me want to punch him in the grave.
I love him dearly, but I'm like, well, we can't agree on everything, Freddie.
That's true.
Because Jaws is the best, and Star Wars is pretty good too. But he does mention Superman in that, I think. Those are the ones that come to mind. Is there I'm sad I can't think of one that mentions Batman. Other than like, the Batman theme song from 1966. But I can't think of like a pop song that mentions Batman.
I know the TV show Dexter mentions Batman about every third or fourth episode, which I think is
okay.
Because my wife and I are rewatching that right now. And I'm like, there's a lot of Batman references going on here.
Nice. But my wife, Catherine, will be very excited that you mentioned Taylor Swift. I didn't know she had a Superman song. So guess I'm going to check that out too.
I bet my daughters know that, but I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Not that I don't have anything against Taylor Swift. It's just I don't listen to her. My daughters listen to her every single day.
I mean, I like some of her songs. I'm not like the Swiftie that my wife is. But I did get my wife a Taylor Swift birthday cake because she just celebrated her birthday last week.
All right, then.
She's all in. Taylor Swift is her Batman. And that's fine. They're both highly troubled people who hold grudges.
And have more money than God.
Yep. All right. The next message is from Will Gibson. It says, "Hey guys, your recent episode about retro Batman commercials made me think of a criticism that I've heard about the Schumacher films and how they were just 2-hour toy commercials, especially with new bat suits and vehicles in the third acts. Do you feel this is an outdated concept, or do toy companies really have this much clout with studios? I suppose I just compare something like the Schumacher films to Burton's, Nolan's, and Reeves's movies. Let's face it, they aren't meant to be kid friendly, but they still spawned a ton of age appropriate toys anyway. I'm curious as to what you think. Thanks and all the best, Will." Thanks, Will. Yeah, the recent episode about commercials was super fun. I hope you guys dug it because we had a great time doing it.
I did.
But
And by the way, for the answer to the question about my Mego things, yeah, I had a bunch of those things when I was a kid, but I don't know if they all broke or what happened to them, but they just slowly vanished. And the last one I can remember having was the Robin, but he was wearing the Spider-Man costume.
oh wow.
But yeah, I had Hulk, I had Cap, I had Batman, Robin, Joker, Superman. I had a bunch of them.
That was it. I knew you had some regret about Mego, and it was that you had them all, but you lost them all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. So it's a very interesting question, Will, about superhero movies as toy commercials. I feel like the Schumacher movies were so guilty of that no movies since have gone down that road in that way. But yes, almost every superhero movie spawns toys, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I like that, and I love the toys. But as far as like, I don't think I've seen a movie since Batman and Robin where I went, "Oh my god, this is just in here because they wanted to make a toy." Jamie, can you think of anything?
Nothing readily comes to mind, but I feel like that's been ever present since my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And case in point being, when I was probably between 5 and 10 years old, there were toys for Alien, there were toys for Rambo, there were toys for the Terminator, all that stuff. I mean, even stuff that was not aimed at kids generated toys.
Yeah.
And he says, do toy companies have that much clout? Probably not, but the studio gets paid licensing on every one of those that gets sold. So yeah, the studio is going to do what they can to encourage that business as well.
Yeah, well, it's like Yogurt says in Spaceballs, merchandising. It's where the real money from the movie is made.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. So I don't think Kenner was like, "Hey, Warner Brothers, you'd better put more toys in here." I think they saw how much money they made on toys for Batman and Batman Returns. And then the studio is the one who told Schumacher, maybe put in some more stuff that could be made into toys, because Schumacher said as much. And then it was bad in Forever, and then it was even worse in Batman and Robin. And so even though I do think it exists, I just think it's done a little more subtle. I don't think there's been anything quite as flagrant as the two Schumacher films, even though, yeah, it still happens, of course,
Now that I've thought about it for a second, I can think of another guilty party franchise that I can throw in, and I would say even worse than the Schumacher films, and that's Star Wars.
Yeah, that's fair.
If anything, guys, we can blame Star Wars for all of this merchandising stuff. I'm not going to say they invented any of it, but I will say that they probably perfected it and drove the industry after the fact, because how many times did a character change clothes, going from one Star Wars movie to another, and sold 3 variations of each costume in the action figure market? And that shit was happening clear back in, the late 70s and early 80s with the original films. It's not like it's something they just developed as the prequels came out or anything else. Everybody learned the lesson from that, and it just boomed from there.
No, you're probably right. That is probably they've always made toys out of movies, but you're right. I think Star Wars changed the game. And then, then everyone was chasing that. All right. Well, interesting question, Will. And you got me thinking. I'm thinking about the Marvel movies, and I'm thinking about the DC movies. And again, they have all spawned toys of some sort. But yeah, I just can't think of any where it's like, they're just going to keep changing their costume so we can make a toy of each one. I just can't think of that so much. Because even when I'm thinking about like The Winter Soldier, which is a movie I love, where I'm like, oh, he's kind of got his stealth outfit and then he goes back to the classic outfit. But I'm like, even then it doesn't, at least it's written into the story in a way that it doesn't feel like, oh, they just wanted to make toys of this.
Yeah, it wasn't just a change of clothes for the sake of.
Right.
There
Exactly.
was a point to it.
Yep. All right. Next message is from Austin. It says, hey guys, after listening to your episode about Batman commercials, I found myself on a bit of a nostalgia trip and I wanted to share a favorite of mine. I was born in the 90s and I grew up in the early 2000s before Batman the Animated Series received a full box set of DVDs. So the only way I could watch the show, other than catching it on TV, were the original Batman the Animated Series VHS tapes. There were 7 tapes. They had 2 episodes apiece with awesome cover art that featured Batman, Robin, Joker, Two-Face, Penguin, Poison Ivy, and Mr. Freeze. The advertisements for these were on the VHS copy of Batman and Robin, and it was such a fun memory to look back on. Did any of you have the tapes or remember the commercials? Austin. Thanks, Austin. I love this. I love that our commercial discussion has caused you to send in more commercials. That makes me happy. I will tell you this. I had all of these tapes, my friend. All of them. But I don't remember the commercial. But, oh my God, because same, in the days before DVD, I was like, I know that someday Batman the Animated Series will not be readily available. I was thinking ahead. And if this was the only way to own some of it, I own them all. So yes, I had all the VHS tapes. I love them. Those are the episodes I know the best because I watched them over and over again. But yeah, this is a fun commercial that I did not remember. So, because here's a fun fact. I never owned Batman and Robin on VHS. I did not own Batman and Robin until it came packaged on DVD with the other Batman movies. So yeah, this commercial is a super fun one and I appreciate you sending it, but good memories. Thanks, Austin. Jamie, did you have these tapes? Do you remember the commercial?
No, the only VHSs I had would have been 89. Actually, the first 3. So Batman and Robin would have been the only one I didn't have.
All right.
Because like you, I didn't own that movie until I was forced to buy it in a box set.
Right. I love this. Maybe for the next commercial episode, we should make it listener's choice. That'd be kind of fun. Send us some undiscovered gems or something. But yeah, cool. All right.
It has to be you and Scotty and Michael that cover that though, because as much as I love participating in this show, that's just like the forte, and you guys have this whole format down to a science. So I say stay with that same crew going on that.
All right. Well, noted. It was fun. It was fun to bring him over and do that.
That's also why I've rarely ever asked to butt into the holiday episodes at this point. I feel like you guys just have that chemistry down. I don't need to get in the mix and screw stuff up.
Well, I wish Brendan was as polite as you.
Brendan just wants an opportunity to talk about Santa Claus the movie at least once a month. So.
I know, but he's like a vampire. I welcomed him on the show once, and then he just never left.
I saw one the other day. This will be one to bake everybody's noodle out there, but I saw this the other day and I chuckled. It might have been in the Real Fans group. Somebody posted it where it was like, can a vampire cop come into your house if he has a warrant without an invitation?
I did see that. I did see that.
Yeah.
The answer is no.
The conversation at work that spawned was unbelievable because I don't work with a bunch of dorky people, geeks, but the conversation has gone on for like 3 straight days.
Wow.
Yeah. What about this? Well, what about this?
Interesting.
Anyway.
Okay, I got one email left here. It's from John McPherson. It says, hey guys, first time, long time. You guys are great and you make a lot of boring drives fun. I'm not sure if someone has said this, but I'm chiming in with my 2 cents about your recent Keaton Moments episode. You mentioned that you always wondered what Batman throws back into the museum after rescuing Vicky. I'm pretty sure it's a smoke pellet. After he throws it, you hear a glass breaking sound. And then in the following shots, you see smoke billowing out of the museum, and there was none inside just before. You can also see the goons waving away smoke as they come chasing out of the museum. Those are my thoughts. Also, if you could be a Gotham citizen witnessing any Batman action scene in the Burton Schumacher films, which one would you want to see? Keep up the great work. Thank you, John. And I read this because, yes, after that episode, I received many messages saying it's a smoke pellet.
Yep.
And I somehow never quite put that together. And so I appreciate you, John, and everyone who messaged me going, it's a smoke pellet. So mystery solved. Thank you guys. So if
the editing for that particular sequence is outstanding too, because again, I just watched it the other. I knew it was a smoke pellet, but it's like watching him just swing his arm back to loosen the rope or fling her out the door, and then in this exact opposite motion throws the pellet in, and they shift the camera to the Joker getting ready to say, "Where does he get those wonderful toys?" And like, as he's saying it, you hear the glass of that shatter, and then the next shot shows the smoke billowing out the door. Like, the editing of that is brilliant, in my opinion.
Sweet. I'm going to have to revisit just that moment. It's now that I will have a new appreciation for the smoke pellet.
Yeah.
So, question. If you lived in Gotham, Jamie, and you could witness any Batman action scene in the Burton Schumacher films, which one would you want to be present for?
That's a fine question. I would say probably the rooftop fight between Batman and Selina, so that when it gets to the moment where she's like, "How could you? I'm a woman." And he's like, "I'm so sorry." And reaches down, I could go, "Hey, dummy, what are you doing?"
Okay.
Plus, I get to see her in that outfit up close, which, pardon my crassness there, but I would not mind seeing that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
See, now where my mind went is I was like, I don't want to be a witness to anyone where I would be in danger. So
Yeah,
I don't want to.
I thought about that because, the whole sequence with the Batwing flying over and getting the balloons, I'd be like, that would be awesome, but I'd have to make sure I had a gas mask.
You'd be getting gassed. Exactly. Like, the parade would be cool, but I don't want to get gassed. And the museum would be cool, but I don't want to get gassed. And, even even Batman Returns, like I could be at the tree lighting, but like I'd miss most of the action because it's up on the rooftop. So all I'd see is the princess get pushed. So I don't know about that one either. So I am going to say, and this is a weird one, I'm going to go with the weird rainforest auction scene in Batman and Robin. Because it's colorful, it's happy, there's drinks, and like I don't feel like I'm in danger because like at this point it's a cartoon and like these thugs, like they're not really hurting civilians. So you could just sit back and watch the silliness ensue. And like, there's the gorilla costume, which is weird. And so, yeah, like I think for just spectacle, I'd go to the auction in Batman and Robin.
I'm going to amend my answer. I want to stay with Batman Returns, but I'm going to go with the getting the uniforms off the hanger scene so I can be present and pull the mommy dearest on them.
See, so you're using this as a way to correct your gripes with certain movies.
Yeah, I am.
It's not about just witnessing a cool Batman moment.
If I wanted to witness anything from that, I would say probably, and this would be tough because I'm not in good enough shape to go up the steps, probably the cathedral sequence in the first one.
I mean, that would be a good one if I could be just a fly on the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be fun. Yeah, I mean, my answer would change if I was a fly on the wall where I'm not in danger. But I'm thinking of like, if I'm a citizen of Gotham, I have to be like, it's a crowd. Where would the crowd be? And so, yeah, I immediately go to Schumacher because it's going to be less dangerous. And yeah, like I don't remember any of the innocent bystanders in the rainforest auction in any real danger.
Yeah. And being present for the Red Triangle Gang thing at the beginning.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, that's a good one actually.
But again, there's impending danger that could happen.
Yeah, they are roughing up some citizens. But if I could find a present to hide behind, that would be a fun one to watch because the Red Triangle game's pretty gnarly, and Batman does some real kick-ass stuff in that big sequence. So that's a good choice too. If we're going Burton, that's a good one. All right, that's it for emails, guys. Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for chilling. I appreciate that. And thanks you also for being patient with my voice. Oh, we made it. Oh, man. Need to rest this voice. But that's where we're going to wrap things up. If you've got something for the Wayne Manor mailbox for next time, send that to Holy BatCast at rf4rm.com. And that's where we're going to wrap up this episode. Jamie, always a pleasure spending Sunday morning with my pal.
Yeah, it was a good time. Got covered over something that we somehow were absent for 9 years and running with. So yeah, it was good to finally get that done and Good conversation. It was a good time.
It was. Where can our friends find you?
My Twitter is as dead as the Flash movie is in my head, but once the Flash exists, my Twitter will again, BatRaider3960. Shows on Real Fans Networks, Real Fans groups on Facebook, but I'm really, really scarce on social media right now because if somebody spoils shit for me on this movie, I am going to become a supervillain.
That's your Joker origin tale?
Yep.
I hope you know every time you say that the Flash movie doesn't exist, I just do the jerk off motion now.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
Rightfully so, but I've been burned too
But
many times.
You've committed. You're committed to the bit, to the bitter end.
Hey, all somebody has to do is show me the movie and it stops. That's all there is to it. But no, I still got to wait another month.
Not quite. We're just under a month now.
Whatever. Something will get in my way and it'll be a month. But anyway.
Oh, let's not do that. Anyway, no. Great to have you. Great to chat. Hooray. And thank you for everybody out there for joining us. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you. And please do subscribe or follow the show wherever you get your podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you love the show, something else you can do to support us that doesn't cost a penny is to just rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. That would be great. Visit holybatcast.com and find us again on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Holy BatCast. If you got something for the Wayne Manor mailbox, again, that is holybatcast@rf4rm.com. Our theme music was created by the talented Gaurav Venkateswar. You can find his work at gvtunes.com. And don't forget to check out our sponsors over at Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com, do some shopping, but get 20% off and free shipping with that promo code BATSCAPED. That'll do it. On behalf of Jamie, I've been Andy. We'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Holy BatCast is not affiliated with Warner Brothers or DC Entertainment. The views and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for. Well, I'm seeing it tomorrow, dude. Oh crap, I just gave away when we recorded this. I'm seeing it June 16th.
You're seeing it before I am. I know that much.
Well, a bunch of people.
Until I see it, it doesn't exist.
A bunch of people are. And I will spoil the shit out of it for you. Don't worry. So I'll just I'm going to take pictures of the screen and just send them to you as I'm watching it.
Why don't you just record
Everyone's
the
going to
movie?
hate me.
Why don't you just record the movie and send it to me?
No.
So I can see it too, because there are no screenings anywhere near reasonable driving distance for me. I'm pissed about it.
That does blow.
Like if it was 5 days away, I'd just be like, yeah, okay, I can wait. But freaking near a month. Screw you, Warner Brothers.